Welcome to the Denver Gazette Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Schmaedeke. Today, we are brought to you by Applewood Plumbing, Heating, and Electric. They have been serving Denver residents for over 50 years. They're the proud sponsor of the Colorado Avalanche and the proud sponsor of this podcast. And today, we are talking, we've got two guests. We are talking college hoops. We're going to preview CU women heading to the Sweet 16 to play, I don't know, someone kind of famous in basketball on Sunday. I don't know. I think I've heard of her before. And then we'll also kind of we'll look back at the CU and CSU men at their runs as the tournament ended. So we are joined by Luke Zahlmann, who was in Manhattan last weekend, Manhattan, Kansas, that is. Luke, how are you today?
They call it the Little Apple, I came to
Yes.
find out, and I thought that was pretty funny. I'm doing great.
And we are joined also by Tyler King, who is going to head up to Boulder right after we record this to talk to J.R. Payne and the CU women. Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back home. I was gone for almost a week total in Dayton and Indianapolis. So I've had enough of the Midwest for a little bit. I'm glad to be back home.
Well, yeah, it was pretty fun there in Dayton, though. I mean, both teams got a win there, so it was pretty fun. All right, so let's talk about what happened with the CU women. They're kind of, they're still alive. They're the focal point. Luke, you were, like you said, you were over there in Manhattan. They started out really slow against Drake and then kind of blew them out. And then, against K-State, real back and forth game. What did you kind of see from that game?
The offenses were it was weird. That game with two rosters, I would say, that can both put up points, can both play some really good offense. I mean, both of them sputtered in that game, and so it became a rock fight. I mean, it really did. Both teams shot under 40% from the field. It became a rock fight, and CU took over in the third quarter. I mean, outscoring someone 17-9 in a quarter, took over, and that was without Jalen Sherrod. I mean, she was out for most of the second half. So it was a really impressive, gutsy effort in a game where it seemed like basically nothing went right for them, and they still were able to win. So I think that actually bodes well, because that's how the tournament goes.
Was Sherrod, did she get hit in the face? Was that what it was?
Yeah, so she broke her nose earlier in the year, and then in the third quarter of this game, she was playing defense, and she caught an elbow right, square to the nose. And so she was out for a while on the bench without the mask on, getting checked. And then she was able to come back in, but she quickly, as I put in my story, she subbed herself out for Tamia Sadler and said, hey, she's playing better than I am, so put her in. So it was actually one of those pretty cool moments in college basketball.
So, Tyler, during that game, you were talking to Tad Boyle on the bus because their game, it pretty much went back to back.
Yeah.
But, you've been around J.R. Payne in this program a bit. What is it to say about, again, like they're mentally tough. They're just a resilient group, and they just show it. They showed it on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of they all like to be underdogs. They all at some point were underdogs kind of in their lives. JR talks about this all the time, and the fact that they don't have any 5-star recruits on the roster, no McDonald's All-Americans. It's a roster full of underdogs, and they thrive in that role. And they even, it's kind of like they were expected to host all season, basically, basically a top 10 team for the majority of the season. And then they have that sputter at the end of the season, and they got a 5 seed instead of a 4 seed. And I guess that kind of just fueled them this weekend. And you kind of saw that with them going out and taking down K-State on Sunday. Obviously a future Big 12 foe. So it was just really impressive. And kind of like Luke mentioned, Tamia Sadler coming off the bench, she had 10 points in 19 minutes. I thought she was kind of the story. Her and Aaron Vonleh were really good in that game. I was able to go back and rewatch the whole thing after I was done with the coverage of the men in Indy. It was just kind of, it was nice to see them get back to the type of ball that would see them play early in the season when they were rolling. I think they were 20-3 at some point after they had going into that USC UCLA series. Like, they were really rolling early in the season. And obviously they had really sputtered down the stretch of the regular season. They lost in the quarters of the Pac-12 tournament, and now it just seems like they're starting to find their groove again, even if they're not, like Luke said, shooting the ball as efficiently as maybe we come to expect, but they're finding ways to gut out wins and just be tougher than the other team, which is kind of what JR likes to do. That's how she wants to win games, basically.
Well, in the Pac-12, you can see how legit the Pac-12 is. How many teams they have in the Sweet 16? It's 4?
5. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because Oregon State, CU.
Almost 6.
Oh, yeah. Stanford, and then the 2 LA schools. Correct. Yeah, so it's pretty legit. So, and Luke, you wrote an interesting story about Kendall Wetta, who, local, went to Valor Christian, kind of their defensive stopper. She's
Mhm.
probably going to be pretty busy on Sunday when they play Iowa.
Well, and that was the craziest part is I write that story for Saturday, and then Aaronette Vonleh comes out on Sunday and breaks her single half steals record on entry passes. I mean, their defense was, I mean, it was incredible. They forced 9 turnovers just on entry passes alone, and that's going against Ioka Lee for Kansas State, 6'6". So you can attribute some of the field goal percentage to that, but for them to be able to completely shut her down was really impressive. And I think it does bode well for, hey, you're obviously facing someone who's now going to demand a lot of attention. Kendall Wetta, I would think, is going to be heavily, heavily involved in any game plan that they have against Caitlin Clark. I mean, if they're able to win that game, I think you'll be able to draw a direct line to Kendall Wetta's defense.
So this is a rematch. They played the Sweet 16 last year. It was a pretty back and forth game. I think Iowa ended up winning by 10, if I'm not mistaken.
They did, yes.
Yeah. But Tyler, I never count out J.R. Payne's team. They just feel like it, but they're going to have to score. Like, how long did it take them to score in the fourth quarter against K-State? Was it like
6 or
5 minutes?
7
It was
minutes?
like 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, but they held Kansas State to 4, and so that's the only way that, I mean, if Kansas State had been able to score in that period, that game would have came down right to the final minute, 30 seconds.
Yeah. So Tyler, who are you looking for to kind of carry that offensive load for them in that game? I mean, hopefully Sherrod's okay after getting hit in the face, but Vonleh's been good. I mean, they're going to need offense in this game.
To me, Aaronette Vonleh is the key to it all. I think she might be pound for pound the most talented player on the CU roster. Just raw talent. I mean, she is really, really gifted post scorer, and obviously she showed how good she is defensively against K-State. Like Luke said, with the 7 first half steals, almost exclusively on entry passes. So she's kind of showing off her versatility. She's obviously a pretty good rebounder too, good offensive rebounder, and she's kind of the player that CU likes to play through kind of offensively. And if she can draw double teams, they like her as ability to pass the ball and get it out to some shooters or cutters that they have. So I think it's Aaronette Vonleh and probably Frida Foreman, I would say. I don't think they're going to win this game if they don't shoot the ball at least a little decently from 3. And obviously Frida Foreman is their best 3-point shooter. Her and Maddie Nolan have been playing pretty well lately. If there's any kind of X factor, maybe it is Maddie Nolan, because Maddie was at Michigan for the last couple of years playing against Caitlin Clark, and she beat her once out of I think 6 times. So that's more than CU can say. They're 0-1, but Maddie Nolan's 1-5 against Caitlin Clark. So maybe Maddie will have some secret recipe for beating Caitlin Clark, because obviously, as we've seen over the last 4 years, she's kind of a one person wrecking crew at times. And even though they have a very talented roster, that goes beyond Caitlin. Iowa does. They're a 1 seed for a reason, but I don't think a lot of people that really follow women's college basketball would be surprised if CU was able to kind of out tough Iowa and pull off an upset, because that's what people have seen from this team, the CU team, all season. Obviously it's a fantastic bracket. Like Albany is just loaded with really good games. You obviously got CU and Iowa in the 1 Sweet 16 game in the region, and then the other one is LSU and UCLA. So, I mean, you can't ask for 2 better games back to back on Saturday afternoon. I think the CU women are playing on ABC, which is really cool for the sport to get that kind of national exposure. And obviously, a lot of Caitlin Clark's games have been on Fox, nationally televised this season. So it'll be cool to see the women get that kind of showcase, and we'll see if they can pull off what would be definitely the biggest win in program history for sure.
Is it Saturday or Sunday are they playing?
It's Saturday afternoon.
It is Saturday. It's Saturday afternoon. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I thought it was Sunday for some reason, but okay. So yeah, I was going to ask Luke, you talked about Maddie Nolan there. Did anyone see the Maddie Nolan heat check coming there in that game? Because didn't she hit 3 threes in a row or something like that? It was.
Yep. Yeah, she hit 3 in a row. And and Tyler brought it up. They're going to need that, because if you look at 63 points is not going to beat Iowa. It beat Kansas State, and that's just the type of game that it was. I mean, I don't think that they necessarily were bad in that game by any means, but they're going to need to score a lot of points. When you look at Iowa's box scores, they are not scoring in the 60s very often. So Maddie Nolan, Frida missed most of the Drake game because of foul trouble. So if those two can both shoot it well, if Jalen can get inside well, I just love how many people they can send. Quay Miller, Aaronette Vonleh. You have 2 bigs to handle down low. You have so many guards who are both good defensively. And I mean, there's a lot of depth for CU. And I think depth is kind of what you need against Iowa, because Caitlin Clark drew 11 fouls in the win last night. And so they're going to need, if nothing else, they're going to need multiple people that can give a foul or two.
3 players fouled out last season in the game against
I
Iowa.
remember that.
Aronette, Frida, and Jalen Sherrod all fouled out in that game. And like you mentioned, Luke, CU scored 77 points against Iowa last season and lost by 10.
Right.
So it's going to take, while the offense is definitely important, they're going to have to play also the defensive game of their life too, which is easier said than done against Caitlin.
Yeah, Iowa only scored 64 in that win last night over West Virginia. That was, I think, a tighter game than anyone expected. They did score 91 in the first one, but they played a 16 seed. There was a funny joke on Twitter I saw that if Iowa and the Lakers played, who would get more foul calls?
That's a good one.
But we'll leave that at that. All right, let's do predictions. Luke, you go ahead and go first. What do you got?
I think CU wins. And it may be recency bias. I just feel that the amount of guards that they can send at Caitlin Clark, I think, is going to make her uncomfortable all day long. And I think it's the type of challenge that Kendall Weta was kind of, I would say, born for, because her mom also played at CU. I mean, that feels like the type of challenge that she will take and really master it. I think she's almost underrated defensively, not by J.R. Payne, but nationally, I think she's a little underrated. And I think they win, and I think they're going to be able to hit shots, because what I saw from Iowa last night was West Virginia missed a ton of wide open shots, a ton. And I think that CU makes those shots.
Tyler, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Iowa. I just think this is kind of all setting up to get Caitlin Clark back into the title game and let it see what it goes from there. This has been the Caitlin Clark season, and I just don't know if it's going to end. Chris, you alluded to the free throws that both her and the LeBron James Lakers get. So I don't know if I don't know how favorable the whistle is going to be. We'll see. Luke makes a lot of good points, and I've definitely watched the team all year, and I wouldn't be surprised, like I said. But I just don't know if anybody's going to let the Caitlin Clark redemption tour get in the way. Anybody's going to get in the way of that, at least in the Sweet 16. So I'll pick Iowa.
Well, and also that would set up a possible rematch with LSU in the Elite Eight, which I think sports is not rigged. But anyway, sorry, I want to make that clear. I want to pick CU. I really do. Like, I love what JR has done with that program. I want them to have that deeper run. You know, they got to the Sweet 16 last year. I'm going to pick them too, just like Luke. I think that they're going to kind of, maybe they muck up the game a little bit and turn it into a rock fight and get under Clark's skin and then force Iowa has a good team. Like you said, they're a 1 seed for a reason. But kind of force everybody else to get involved and maybe win it like 71-68 or something like that. I think it'd be a really cool moment for the program. So I'm going to go with a big upset win as well. Let's transfer over to the men. Tyler, you covered CU and CSU in Dayton, and then went to Indianapolis to cover CU. Let's start with what happened in Dayton a little bit. The Rams played Virginia, who scored 11 points in the first half, or 14?
14. CSU scored 11 the Rams scored 11 against Texas in the first half.
So I think I want to talk a little bit more big picture with both these teams. So let's start with CSU. And, Luke, you're a grad, you're CSU, you can chime in with this as well. They're going to lose a lot going into next year. It doesn't look like Nico's going anywhere because a lot of those jobs filled up, but this is probably going to be his biggest rebuilding kind of project. Yeah,
I think so. They have some young guys they really like. There's a good chance Nick Clifford comes back. It seems like he's got the COVID year. But they do have, 5 other seniors with Isaiah Stevens, Joel Scott, Patrick Cartier, Josiah Strong, and Joe Palmer all leaving. I do like a lot of the young guys. I've written about how much I like Rashawn Bemba a lot this season. Kyan Evans was a pretty high recruited guy, a guy they really liked. He'll get a chance to be the point guard. Jalen Lake will have a little bit of a bigger role. Taviante Jackson, all these guys. But they're going to have some scholarships to play with in the transfer portal. And obviously, it's a little bit difficult for a program like CSU that doesn't have the big NIL funding. They're trying to get there. That's definitely a step they're trying to make in all aspects of the athletic department. But we'll see what they can do in the transfer portal. And obviously keeping Nico, which it looks like he's going to stay at this point, did not get the Washington job, did not get the Michigan job. Louisville doesn't look like he's in the running for that, did not get the West Virginia job. So he's obviously been picky. He's been selective throughout his career. He's interviewed and turned down offers before while he's been at CSU. So obviously getting him to stay is absolutely huge. It felt like maybe Ali Farouk-Manesh would have been a natural replacement, just kind of a promotion if Nico did leave. But I mean, they might be able to keep both those guys, which would be huge. I thought last year the rebuilding they did, getting guys like Neek and Joel and from the transfer portal to come on board was huge after the disappointing season they had following the previous NCAA tournament run. So, but this is going to be much, much harder. There's no Isaiah Stevens still on the roster for a fifth year. So Neek Clifford was great all season. He really, really improved from his time at CU. So we'll see if he's capable of being the guy. But I mean, they're definitely going to have to go out and add some bodies this offseason because, the Mountain West is not going to get much easier, even with some coaches leaving. Like I said, Danny Sprinkle from Utah State's going to Washington. So San Diego State's not going anywhere anytime soon. New Mexico, they're going to lose some guys, but New Mexico still got some really good young talent. So it's going to be an important offseason for CSU and Nico Medved. That's for sure.
I'm glad you brought up the Mountain West because that was kind of my question to Luke. There was a lot of talk about the Mountain West going to the tournament if they were seeded right in this. And, San Diego State made Sweet 16, but everybody else didn't do great. But so what did you think of the Mountain West performance?
The Mountain West was seeded correctly, and they have been seeded correctly, in my opinion, in basically every tournament. They just don't succeed in the tournament. And I think
if you're not San Diego State,
there could be any number of reasons, right? It's going to be different program to program. Boise State losing, Utah State getting destroyed in the second round. There's different reasons for all these things. But I do think we found out that a conference like the ACC, little underrated, and a conference like the Mountain West, I can love all the net numbers, the scheduling numbers. A lot of those things are propped up by each other in the conference, though. I know they all seem really awesome, and these are legitimate teams. But I do think the Mountain West got completely, underseeded across the board. I thought that was always a little overboard. I thought that they were seeded pretty correctly, and I personally feel like the tournament has kind of shown that over time.
Tyler, you have a rebuttal to that, or do you agree?
I don't really agree fully.
Let's go then.
But I don't really have an argument considering how many teams lost. I thought Nevada and New Mexico would meet in the Sweet 16. I just watching all these games watching all these teams this season up in Fort Collins, it was really impressive. It's high level basketball. I can attest to that with my own eyes. And Nevada was up 21 on Dayton before blowing that game in the second half. So I had that team in the Elite Eight, and they were good. I thought they were a good team, and maybe if they win that game, they could beat Arizona. I thought they were definitely capable of doing that. I thought CSU and Boise got kind of a raw deal, both being sent to Dayton, which they wouldn't have been in a normal year considering how many bid stealers there were, like a historic amount. So I guess it's it was kind of a little bit cruel, but CSU blew out Virginia, an ACC team, I didn't think Abs belonged at all in Dayton, and that was nice to see. But CSU obviously then loses to a Big 12 team, and I'm not going to dispute that. The Big 12 is by far the best conference in the country, I feel like. And then, New Mexico is probably the most disappointing because they got blown out by Clemson, and they were kind of favored going into that game, which shows how much people believed in that New Mexico team after their run in Vegas. So. It is disappointing for the Mountain West. The Utah State game I thought would be closer, but San Diego State's still in it. I feel like they still got 6 bids, which is historic for them. It's a good step for the conference. It's going to be all about kind of how they can maintain it, basically with the talent they're inevitably going to lose on the coaching side and the player side.
New Mexico was my upset pick in the Denver Gazette, so that went well. But
I had Nevada, so that
there you go. And I also had Kentucky in the Final Four, so let's just leave that be. But okay, so Tyler, do you think CU was seeded right?
They got the seed they earned. I felt like, but they were one of the. They were one of the better.
Said that they were like the best 10 seed he's ever seen, or what did he say? Something
they played like it. That's for sure. Yeah. They played like it. That's for sure. The Boise game was always going to be tough, like a kind of a slog of a game, and it was, and they pulled away in the last couple of minutes because they're better than Boise. And then they kind of showed how good they really are in the 2 games against Florida and Marquette. That Florida game was one of the best tournament games I've ever seen in my entire life. And being, right behind the benches basically for that was really one of the more fun moments I've ever had in my professional sports writing career. That was awesome. Just being a couple feet away from KJ Simpson's game winner, like that might be the biggest or the best shot in program history. If I had to guess, I mean, it obviously they've been to the Final Four before, but that was well before the tournament field expanded. And I mean, just being on that national stage like that, like those were two really good teams I thought that were underseeded. Well, they played better than their seeds, and then the CU Marquette game, like I thought that was appropriate. CU has been a top 25 Ken Palm team for the last couple weeks. It just feels like a second round exit where they lose a game that could have went either way felt kind of appropriate. They lost a couple possession game, and Cody Williams has a wide open three to give them the lead with like a minute to go.
KJ did too.
And that was the game. Before. It was.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a surprise if they made the Sweet 16 based off how they were playing, but I think this team showed how good they are in the tournament after obviously being kind of having an up and down season with injuries, and just needing that pretty ridiculous run at the end of the regular season to get in the NCAA tournament. So, but once they got there, they proved why they belong, which I think was the most impressive part.
So, Luke, I saw you shaking your head at the seed question, so I'll ask you about that in a second. But I'm thinking about like best shots in CU hoops history. Like in the tournament, I think it's no question. It's that Simpson shot. Regular season, they had that buzzer beater against Kansas years ago.
The Askia Booker Scott.
Yeah. He hit that. There's the one that didn't count that people always talk about in Arizona when Sabatino Chen actually hit a three to win the game, but that didn't count. That's CU Buffs fans always talk. But my days in Boulder, people were still bitter about that shot because I think Arizona was number 1 at that time or something like that, and they would have won in Tucson. And it was just a big deal. But yeah, that Askia Booker one against Kansas is the one I always think of. But in the tournament, like that's KJ's shot was all right. So you don't agree with the seeding for CU there, Luke?
I don't, because I felt that CU being seeded as the last team in, I thought was appropriate. And that's coming from someone who's a CSU fan. I think that they were able to prop things up a lot from early season wins. By the end of the season, CU was a substantially better team than CSU, in my opinion. I'm not saying, it's a 30-point difference, but if they play that game again, even if it's in Fort Collins, I feel like CU beats them by 10. And so I think, as Tyler brought up, this year was wacky across the board for seeding because of all the bid stealers, all the good teams that got left out. So it was wacky across the board. But I thought that CSU and CU being seen almost as the same seed was a little odd, but like Tyler said, it was kind of the only place they could fit. I just didn't think that I thought they were a tier above the 3 other teams that played in those first games.
So Tyler, does Cody Williams go to the draft?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty.
And De Silva's out of eligibility too, right?
No, he's not, but he's not coming back. That's
so?
For sure. Him and Luke O'Brien, I've already made it clear they're not coming back. They're literally everybody on this team can come back if they want to. Nobody's out of eligibility. Now they have 3 freshmen coming in, so 3 people got to go. But I think it's pretty clear if you see Luke, Tristan, and Cody, that's 3, and then we'll see from there. I would not be surprised if 6 of the top 7 rotation guys that they talk so highly about are gone, and the 6 that were healthy for the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if all of them are gone.
Well, De Silva took that game over against Marquette there after halftime. Like the Cody Williams debate is interesting. He was pretty good against Marquette.
And Florida. I thought he was good in both those games.
Yeah, he was good in both those games. But De Silva plays like an NBA player, in my opinion.
Yeah, he made himself some money this weekend.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, he scored 18 points in the 3 tournament games. He was good against Boise State, too. He had 20 points. He shot, I think, 56% from 3 across the 3 games, which, I mean, and he shot 60% from the field. Like, he made himself some money this past weekend with how he played. I mean, he was just showing off everything that he does well. It was more than just catch and shoot stuff. Like, he's coming off curls and taking contested shots, and he's stealing the ball. He's leading fast breaks, like that one where he lobbed it up to Bangkok Dak for an alley-oop in transition against Florida. That was like right in front of me. And that was really impressive to see. Tristan definitely made himself some money this weekend. He's definitely, I think, trending toward being probably like a in the 20s, a first-round pick in that range, because I've kind of had questions about his NBA future just based on the athleticism. But I mean, he is a legit catch and shoot guy, and he defends pretty well too for his size. He's got some good length, so I think there's going to be a a ready to win team that will be eager to take him in the 20s of the upcoming draft. So he's definitely not coming back. Him and Luke O'Brien have made that clear. So Luke may use his COVID year elsewhere instead of opting to play for Go Pro. We'll see what he wants to do there. But those three guys, I really don't expect them back. And KJ is kind of the key to it all, it feels like.
Doesn't De Silva have Nuggets draft pick written all over him?
That would be interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting.
I mean, was in college for a couple years, experienced.
He's the good 3-point shooter. He's the type they like.
Yep. I mean, he's Julian Strother all over again.
Hunter Tyson.
Strother shoots better, but yeah. All right, real quick before we go, let's just talk about, who's left in the tournament. Is this still, Luke, we'll start with you. Is this UConn and everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, every time I was pleasantly surprised by Marquette, though. I thought Tyler Kolek played like a man possessed. He's played like that ever since he came back. I mean, he's been ridiculous, but UConn does seem a step above everyone, but all it takes is one game for that to go away. You can show it all year, but in one game, I mean, look what Gonzaga did to Kansas. I don't think that anyone could have predicted that. So all it takes is one game.
Tyler, what about you? What do you think?
I had Houston winning it all, and I'll stick with that. I had Houston and Iowa State in the championship game. Actually, I had Auburn beating UConn in the Sweet 16, but Auburn's a top 5 KenPom team. I thought that was a kind of a raw draw for UConn, but Auburn didn't even make it there. So I would expect UConn to make the Final Four at this point, along with Houston. Maybe Iowa State gets them in the Elite Eight. We'll see. But I had UNC as well in there. I think Creighton, Vinny's Creighton Blue Jays. I had them in the Final Four as well. So I'll stick with Houston. That was they kind of got screwed at the end of that regulation against Texas A&M with all the free throws and stuff, but they pulled it out in overtime. I just think they're the best team defensively. Jamal Shedd's really good, so I'll stick with Houston.
Kind of like Tennessee a little bit, watching them, and with Dalton there, the local team, I think that'd be kind of cool. But they play Creighton, so
I flip-flopped on that game a couple times.
Yeah, that should be a pretty good game. So. All right, everything gets going again Thursday on the men's side. The women start Saturday, or do they start Friday?
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday with the Sweet 16. CU plays on ABC on Saturday. 12:30 tip our time.
Sounds about right.
That sounds right. I think that's right. Yeah, that'd probably be an ABC game. All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple or on Spotify, and make sure to check out Tyler's going up to CU today So he'll have some coverage from the women. We all know Luke covers the Rockies. We'll talk about them a little bit later. So you can check out that all at denvergazette.com. And guys, have a good day and enjoy the Sweet 16.
Thanks, Chris.
Sounds good.